Everybody set up? Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good day. First day without humidity in a long time, so congratulations to everyone that got their run in this morning. My name is Eugene D. Pasquale, Pennsylvania Auditor General, and thank you for being here. Just last week, I was in the city of Reading, and we were doing announcing the results of my latest audit of the Reading area school district, or the Reading School District. And in 2013, it was one of the first audits I had conducted as Auditor General, certainly one of our first school audits. And it was a scathing audit of that school district. And we put forward a host of recommendations on what would be needed to turn that district around financially, knowing that they had significant challenges demographically, and Reading being, I think, the second highest poverty rate in the country. And last week I was in Reading to announce that practically every single one of our audit recommendations was followed, and through the leadership of the new superintendent, his team, and the cooperation with the teachers, it was a miraculous turnaround of the Reading School District. And first of all, enormous credit should go to Dr. Momin and his team for that tremendous work, and the teachers, and most importantly, the students that are doing the work. But what I announced after that first audit of Reading was that I was not going to be one and done, that we were going to follow up on major audits to make sure that our recommendations were followed up on. And so Reading was an example, and is an example, of what happens when our audit recommendations are followed. So that's why I'm here today to announce that over the next 2 years, I will be following up on the 207 recommendations from 9 key audits and special reports that I've done in my first 5.5 years as Auditor General. I will evaluate how well state agencies have followed my recommendations and determine what changes they have made since my last audit, and I will continue to demand accountability from each and every one. The special report follow-ups will focus on these 9 programs: the Department of Community and Economic Development's job creation programs, the Department of Human Services Child Line, better known as the Child Abuse Hotline, the Department of Agriculture's Dog Law Enforcement, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Home Waiting List Compliance, the Department of Environmental Protection's Water Quality Protection Capabilities, the State Employee Retirement System and the Pennsylvania State Employees Retirement System's Administration of Pension Funds and Management Fees, the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education's Title IX and Clery Act Compliance, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistant Agency's board makeup, and additional examination as to why Pennsylvania students now have the highest debt in the country, and the continued status of the untested rape kits in our Commonwealth. Those are the 9 that I have selected with discussion of my team to focus on, in addition to the audits that we're already doing, but in the remaining time I have in office, those are the major audits we've done that we're going to be doing follow-up reports on. These reports in particular touch the lives of all Pennsylvanians, and I owe it to every single Pennsylvanian to make sure that every single one of these programs is operating as effectively as possible. When I first ran for Auditor General in 2012, it was a commitment that I made that I would be a different kind of Auditor General, that I would not just be pointing out problems, but I would offer solutions, and then I would fight to make them. I recognize I won't win every single battle, but as the kids and taxpayers in Reading now know, that when these recommendations are followed, good things can happen to the people that we are meant to serve. Now, I also want to point out that sometimes there are some disagreement about some of the recommendations, but on the lion's share of these audits, sometimes the findings were disagreed on. I know this is being somewhat boring and technical, but the recommendations were almost always agreed to. So That's why we're going to focus on the recommendations. We're not going to relitigate the past findings. We're going to focus on the recommendations that we offered that we thought were helpful, and also look at, especially in the cases where the agency agreed with the recommendation. So, for example, DCD's job creation programs. I released this audit in 2014. This performance audit evaluated the job creation programs of that department. It focused on the extent to which businesses that received job creation assistance actually created and retained the family-sustaining jobs that they promised. What I found was that DCD needed to have better oversight of these programs, and that, for example, only 56% of the businesses awarded grants or loans created the actual jobs that they promised. Now, that was under a previous administration. This administration at DCD has said they have fixed it. Our job and my job is to make sure that they fulfilled exactly what they said they were going to do. Another example would be, and as people know, the audit of Childline, which found in 2015, the first part of 2015, there were 42,000 unanswered phone calls. The entire audit period, 58,000 unanswered phone calls. Poor technology, not enough staff. Now, the department says, and I believe, or I hope they are right, that the percentage and amount of unanswered phone calls has gone dramatically down, and that they have bolstered the staff. We're going to make sure that that is actually taking place to make sure that our kids have the type of protection that they need in Pennsylvania. Right now, the department says that they are about under 2%. During our audit period, we found it was about 22% of unanswered phone calls. Again, we're going to find out, for example, if that is accurate. Department of Agriculture's dog law enforcement. In 2013, my performance audit of that law found lax leadership, a lack of enforcement, and poor financial management. Again, we're going to find out if that has been fixed. And as I can tell you, for anyone that's been across Pennsylvania, there's liberals, moderates, conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, independents. There's people that are pro-Trump, pro-Hillary, pro-Gary Johnson, pro-Bernie. Nobody. I mean, nobody's anti-dog. So we're going to find out if Pennsylvania's dog law is being enforced. Department of Veterans, Military and Veterans Homes released a performance audit in 2016, and it raised concern in two major areas. How was the DMVA administering the waiting list for veterans' homes, and how was it handling complaints about the care veterans were receiving in those homes? The department has said they have rectified each of those issues. We're going to go back in and make sure that our veterans are getting the care they need. The DEP water quality audit. In 2014, my performance audit of DEP, which started on my first day in office, found that in no way was the agency equipped to protect Pennsylvanians' drinking water during the meteoric growth of the shale gas industry. I found that the dedicated, hardworking staff at DEP at that time were hampered in doing their jobs simply by a lack of resources. Now, for those of you that may not remember, we had an audit finding that said that the department needed more inspectors. And this was during 2014 when we came out with this. And the Corbett administration vigorously disagreed with that finding. However, on the exact same day as my audit release, they also hired 56 new inspectors. So, as I said then, whether they agreed or disagreed with the finding, we're going to focus on the recommendation. And we're going to see if they have hired the necessary people that we outlined to make sure that Pennsylvania's drinking water, and for rural Pennsylvania, the well water, is appropriately protected. Sirs and Peasers, we looked at investment management fees. And last year, I released an audit of Peasers in May and an audit of Sirs in August. And those separate audits found Peasers and Sirs were suffering from a similar affliction, sky-high investment management fees that were going into the pockets of Wall Street managers. Now, Sirs and Peasers both said they took that report seriously, and they were going to work to reduce the amount of fees that were paid to Wall Street managers. In 2016, it was $416 million. In management fees. 2017 is $474 million. So we're going to see if those audit recommendations were being followed. And so, and another thing that should be pointed out, that there is also simultaneously to this follow-up report a pension management asset Investment Review Commission, which may be the worst name anybody could give any commission, and I've seen some bad ones, but it is doing important work, chaired by Republican State Representative Mike Tobash and Treasurer Joe Torsello, who's a Democrat. They're working together in a bipartisan way to also look at the asset investment of Pennsylvania. And so and I want to point this out because I know that work is ongoing right now. I've instructed my team to hold off on the PISAs and CERS special report until 2020 to make sure that we are clear of the report of that commission. So I want to make sure that they have the ability to do their work, and we may even be able to take some of their work and build upon that as well. Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education Campus Safety. My performance audit of PASHE and campus safety was released in 2015. It specifically evaluated the state-owned university's compliance with Title IX and the Clery Act, both federal laws. And Title IX is about more than gender equality in sports. It deals with a wide range of policies and procedures, from preventing sexual violence and sex discrimination in all aspects of college life. While the Clery Act requires each state-owned university to produce annual reports about campus crime statistics. Again, this is something that we are light years ahead of when most of us were in college, but still we can get better. And my job is to make sure that PASHE, they now are going to be having new leadership starting soon, that they have implemented the recommendations that they agreed to make sure that each one of our state university college campuses is safer going forward for all kids in Pennsylvania. FIA, in 2008, my predecessor, Jack Wagner, released a performance audit of FIA that called for, among other changes, for the governing board to have the number of seats held by legislators. The audit found that FIA's culture sometimes allowed board members to reward themselves instead of making sound financial decisions. Essentially, FIA was failing in its mission to use all available resources to benefit Pennsylvania students. And that can be probably further highlighted by Pennsylvania today leads the nation in college student debt. Our kids lead the nation in debt. That is not a statistic that we want to lead America in. And finally, but certainly not least, and people know the importance that I have placed on eliminating the backlog of untested rape kits. In my special report in 2016, I found three major issues, and that was inadequate communication to law enforcement agencies about reporting and handling of rape kits, errors in the Department of Health's first official report on backlog kits, and resource shortages that could lead to delayed justice for victims. Now, it is probably no surprise when I tell you that when I am traveling across Pennsylvania, and I've heard from parents of victims and sometimes the victims themselves, that the idea that there is any untested rape kit is outrageous to most Pennsylvanians, if not all. Now, I understand some of the bureaucratic reasons why that may have existed in the past. There should be no excuses moving forward, minus, and this is not an excuse, the only explanation that I will tolerate is the victim didn't want it tested. That I will respect. Every other answer is simply not going to be tolerated. So those are the areas that I'm going to focus on for our follow-up reports in my last 2.5 years, although I keep saying 2.5, it's really almost like 2.25 now. I mean, boy, time's flying when you're having fun. But this is going to be, this is a new area for this department. And again, it's something I talked about in both of my campaigns. That is not just pointing out problems, but offering solutions and then making sure those solutions are implemented. So with that, more than happy to take any and all questions.
Your 2014 water quality report focused primarily on the wastewater that's created from fracking. Are you expanding that outward, for example, to address the wider deficiencies in drinking water?
The short answer is we're going to be focused on our recommendations. We are aware that during the time since all of the audits, not just the DEP, other issues have developed, and we will certainly be asking additional questions based on those other issues. You know, for example, our report on the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority found significant issues with the drinking water of Pittsburgh based on that report. DEP has a role and responsibility in that as well, and those will be some of the issues that we'll be asking. But the primary focus is on the recommendations.
And do you plan to ask them about, for example, the EPA's strong warning that Pennsylvania was not upholding its responsibility?
Absolutely. That is something that is certainly going to be on our list of questions. And we're very aware of that, and hopefully the department is taking that very seriously.
And that warning came in December 2016.
Right.
Your initial audit came out somewhere in mid-2014.
Correct.
So clearly there was at least 2 years where nothing was addressed, or that element was
That element, at least. Now, there might have been, they hopefully were implementing my recommendations in that time frame as well. And I'm not exactly sure when EPA began that work before they made that announcement. So I'm not sure of all that timeline there. But those are issues that we'll certainly be asking them.
Is there any sort of cost associated with doing these types of follow-ups?
Look, we have the staff that's already in place that'll be doing it. You know, I don't see any additional cost that any agency or my agency already would be having anyway, unless you want to talk about that we'll be printing 9 additional reports. So the cost of the paper, but we do print double-sided and not in color.
Can I ask something real quick off topic? I was wondering if you would want to comment at all about the passing of Susan.
I obviously put something out on social media yesterday. Most of you know Susan, and for some of you that didn't, Susan Woods passed away. It was actually 2 days ago now in the evening, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. And for those that didn't know her well, she served 3 governors, actually. People know about her work for Governor Rendell and Governor Casey. Most people don't know, or a lot of people don't know, that she also worked for Governor Glendening in Maryland. Susan was the best. She was, first of all, a good friend. You know, she could get fired up at times, usually because I wasn't following her advice. And while sometimes she could be fired up about giving it, the advice almost always turned out to be spot on advice. She was very much, for most people that know, a committed Democrat and a committed liberal. But you never saw that in her work. When she was at work, she was at work. And yeah, sometimes at night she'd send me the text about, do you believe Trump did this or that or something. But when she was at job, she was the consummate pro. And what has been, I think, the most, I think, touching, I don't know what other phrase to use, in the last 24 hours is how many reporters or former reporters, I'm talking all over the country, that have sent me, whether it be a Facebook message or tweet, or just they got my cell phone or email and they sent me a private note, that respected. I'm talking about people all over the country that just enjoyed working with her. And you don't replace that as a friend or as a professional. And our state government is a little less today because Susan Woods isn't working for it. And final thing to say is it went pretty fast. A lot of people that even knew her didn't know she was sick. And it's maybe another reminder that we should all cherish all of our moments. Sometimes we all get, our priorities misplaced a little bit. So, I hate to say it, but sometimes these can serve as a reminder to focus on what's important as well. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a great rest of the day.